Hello again, and welcome back to my art desk. So this is going to be part two of the nature journal entry regarding the little fox that visited our yard here about a month ago. So in the first video, if you haven't seen that, I can link that below. But in the first video, we spent a lot of time laying out the spread and practicing the sketch from the photograph and then actually starting the painting of the fox. So I'm going to show you the completed spread today, and we'll also take a look again at where I looked to learn more about the red fox. As for me, a big part of nature journaling is not only capturing memories of the things that I see in God's creation, but it's also about digging in a little bit and learning a little bit more about what I've seen and what I've noticed. And this is fun to do as an adult. This is fun to do as a kid. It is fun regardless of your age. It's fun to do by yourself, and it's fun to do in a group, whether that group is your family or a group of people that are all interested in exploring God's creation together. So I think we'll jump right in. Oh, and I have a download that I'm going to be attaching to this as well, that you're welcome to print it out, and we'll talk more about what you could do with it here in a little bit. But let's get into looking at the spread. I'm sorry about the interesting shadows. I am still learning how to film these videos, and I think I have a lot to learn. Um, so I'll start over here on this page just because there's more information on this page. So this you can see is my completed Fox watercolor. I did use a black micron pen for after I had penciled in his basic shape. I used that for adding some of the fur details and darkening up like the tips of his ear and his nose, his eye, and then over his leg. Um, and then I used my art toolkit watercolor palette and my water brush for adding the paint details. And in the photograph, there was snow on the ground with like bits of leaves and sticks protruding through. So you can see I just kind of smudged in some kind of a gray color. And then when I got finished with this, which this was not in the last video, I decided to do a little bit of splatter over the top, and I really like that effect. And it was fun. It was just a fun painting to do. And you can see here that, if I can do this, there we go. I added a stanza from Cecil Francis Alexander's hymn, All Things Bright and Beautiful. And I love that hymn. And we also we're into watching All Creatures Great and Small right now. The new season came out earlier in January. So it's just on my mind. So I included the stanza that says, All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. And I want to encourage you, if you have not heard that hymn, to look it up and listen. It is just a lovely, precious hymn that focuses our thoughts onto the Lord who made all these wonderful things for us to see. So on this page, here's where I did my initial very quick, very loose sketch of the fox from the photograph, because I wanted to do a little planning sketch before jumping into my completed one. I also had photographed what I thought was the fox's footprints in the snow. So I used this book, Tracking in the Art of Seeing, to kind of double check against my photograph. And I do think that that's what I saw. Although when I drew it, I made this foot a little bit too big. It should have been smaller, but I still learned. I think one of the interesting things I learned from reading in the book is that on a fox's foot, when they step into mud or sand or snow, whatever it is, sometimes you can see what looks like a bar going across their back pad. And that can help you determine whether you are looking at a fox print or a small dog print. So that was super interesting. I didn't know that. Um, so my question is, and this question does not have an answer yet, is where is the current den that they're using? So we have a pretty large section of woods on our property, and I did know that fox they can dig their own dens, but they also will repurpose a groundhog's den and sometimes even share the den with the groundhog, which I found that to be very interesting. So I don't know where this guy or girl, I don't know where their den is. A few years ago, so that leads to this little picture right here. A few years ago, we did have there is a groundhog hole on the back of a little hill next to our big woods. And we did see a family of fox throughout that summer. And so we know that and we saw them around the opening. So we know that they used that in the past, but I don't know if they're using it currently or if they've moved on to a different place. So that is something that here through the rest of the winter months, I want to go check out. I have not yet, but I would like to check that out. So I just added this little scene from my memory of kind of the back of that hill, which is all just very scrubby, and added the little den and a couple little box kits for my imagination. Um, so something else that I learned using this book that I found to be very interesting is that if you were looking for signs of a fox on your property or wherever it is that you're looking, if there's snow on the ground, you can look for the tracks. And then if you see the tracks, fox will often stop and urinate right in their trail to kind of mark their trail. And if you catch it soon enough, which I know this is kind of gross, it can smell really strong, even from a distance, like skunk. And it said it was especially strong in January, February. So that was an interesting little fact about the red fox signs. They're scat. They often will stop, and that will be right in the middle of where you see their paw prints. And another interesting thing, well, I knew that fox eat little rodents and such. So it is, logical that their scat would have fur and such in it. But I just didn't, I don't know if they've ever thought about it, even though there's that Aesop fable about the fox and the grapes, but they really do like fruit. So where we live here in Indiana, we have a lot of wild grapes and wild raspberries. And as it turns out, it is not uncommon in the summer months that you might be seeing fox scat and not really realizing that's what it is because it's not going to look like it does in the winter. So kind of interesting. I had the Latin name up here, and another interesting fact about their dens is that they prefer to have their den on a south-facing slope. However, the one that we were, certain that was being used on our property that faced, what would that be? That faced the west, not the south. So interesting. So that is my finished Red Fox spread, and I really enjoyed this. I hope this gives you some ideas about what you could do or what you could do with your kiddos. So that's going to lead me to the next page here in a minute. Oh, I forgot to mention this. This is just, I just looked up, I wanted to add a picture of a fox laying down. And so I just found one on Pinterest and looked at it and did my version of it. And I am happy with how that turned out. And I like that it has a bit more color than, because this is a pretty, I used a lot of Payne's gray. So it's a very, uh, excuse me, it's not a very colorful spread, but I do really like how the fox's fur turned out, and then having these little bits of that same color that I used in the fox's fur on this side. Okay, excuse me. So what I did is I looked back, I looked again at, oh, there's some pencil marks on there, at my original photograph that I used to draw the fox in my nature journal, and I drew him again. And you can probably tell every time I draw this guy, he turns out a little bit different, which, that's pretty standard. Um, to not have, even if you really like one version of your drawing, if you draw it again, it's probably going to look a little different, and that is just fine. And then the other little image here, this is from a photograph that was taken it was at the same time, but when he was looking away. And I really liked how it was so cute that you could see the black tips on the back of his ears. So I did want to add that onto my download. Eventually, I want to do this one as well, but I haven't yet. So I'm going to attach this image onto the YouTube video, and you are welcome to print it out. There's several ways you could use this. One, you could use this if you have little kiddos, they could use this as a color page. And then they could be cut out and added into a nature journal, whatever you would like. If you yourself or one of your kiddos would like, they can use this just because it's a pretty simple line drawing to practice themselves following the contours or the outside edges of the fox and practice drawing their own fox. What I usually tell my students is to decide where you're going to start. So I might pick the tip of the nose, and then I'm just going to let my eyes follow the contours or the edges of the shapes that I see that make up the outline of the body of the fox. And then once you get your outline like you like, then you can go in and add some details. So that is an option, to just use this as a reference to draw from. Another option would be to trace it by laying a lighter weight piece of paper over the top and tracing it. Or this is a fun thing to do, is to get some, and I'm sorry I don't have any here at my desk right now, but is to get a piece of carbon paper and lay your carbon paper face down, so dark side down, onto the surface of your sketchbook. Lay this image on top, and then lightly with a pencil to just trace the lines that you would like to transfer onto your sketchbook. And then you can work from there with going over it with pen or colored pencils, watercolors, crayons, whatever you would like. So I think that completes everything that I wanted to talk about in this part 2 of the Red Fox. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me questions or comments of any sort, and I will get back to them as soon as I can. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a very blessed day.